The atmosphere of Proxima B was a tapestry of burnt orange and dusky purple hues, the air filled with a faint metallic tang. It wasn't hostile, but it wasn't home either. Humanity's first true interstellar colony had been built on this rocky exoplanet, half a triumph of engineering, half an act of desperation after Earth's biosphere began collapsing under centuries of strain. Dr. Ilara Voss stepped off the crawler transport, her boots crunching on the coarse, crystalline soil. Ahead of her, a jagged opening in the canyon wall loomed like the gaping maw of an ancient predator. A cluster of explorers and technicians hovered around the entrance, their suits shimmering under Proxima's dim red light. Dr. Voss called a voice, sharp but laden with respect. It was Commander Ainsley, the mission lead. He was a no-nonsense man, his face weathered by countless off-world expeditions. "This is it. You're the expert. Take a look." Ilara adjusted her helmet and approached the cavern. The airlock seals on her suit hissed as they equalized pressure. Inside, the cavern gleamed with prismatic reflections. Jagged crystal formations jutted from the walls and ceiling, refracting light in impossible, kaleidoscopic patterns. "What am I looking for?" she asked, her voice cool and detached. Ainsley gestured toward the center of the chamber, where a strange artifact stood. It was a towering obelisk, seemingly grown from the crystalline floor itself, its surface etched with intricate, fractal-like carvings. The symbols glowed faintly, pulsating in rhythm with a low, harmonic hum that seemed to emanate from deep within. "We ran every scan we could think of," Ainsley said. "No radiation, no emissions, nothing we can interpret as technology. But this hum, it's alive in some way. It's waiting for something." Ilara moved closer, her scanner in hand. The obelisk pulsed brighter as she approached, the hum growing softer, more melodic. A tingling sensation ran down her spine. "It's reacting to proximity," she murmured. Her voice, caught on the cavern's acoustics, seemed to intertwine with the hum. The obelisk responded. A faint, golden thread of light extended from its surface, swirling around her. The scientists and technicians behind her gasped, but Ilara remained frozen, her eyes wide. "It's resonating," she said, her breath hitching slightly. With trembling fingers, she placed a hand on the obelisk. The instant her gloved palm made contact, the melody shifted. It grew richer, layered, as though an entire symphony had been condensed into a single note. Flashes of imagery, not her own, flooded her mind. Stars exploding in slow, fiery dances. Oceans of colors she couldn't name. And then a single image, a figure standing beneath a sky of swirling constellations, their arms raised as though in supplication. The figure wasn't human. Ilara stumbled back, her breath coming in sharp gasps. "What happened?" Ainsley demanded, stepping forward to steady her. "It's a message," she said, her voice shaky but resolute. This thing is trying to communicate." Chapter 2. A whisper across the void. Back in the research station, the artifact stood encased in a specially designed containment field, the golden thread of light now dormant. Dr. Ilara Voss paced around the room, her brow furrowed, replaying the flashes she'd seen in the cavern. The images had seared themselves into her mind, alien yet achingly beautiful. "It's not random," she said aloud, mostly to herself. "The sequence, the light, it's patterned communication. Purposeful." "You're saying it's intelligent?" asked Ainsley, standing at the edge of the lab with arms crossed. His skepticism was as thick as his gruff voice. "Beyond intelligent," Ilara replied, her voice clipped. "It's expressive. That melody wasn't just data. It was emotion. Sentience." Ainsley frowned. "So, what does it want?" Ilara shook her head. "That's what I need to figure out. Hours stretched into days as Ilara worked tirelessly to decode the artifact's signals. A team of linguists and xenotechnologists provided input, but the breakthroughs always came when Ilara was alone, her mind focused entirely on the strange, symphonic patterns of light and sound. One night, in the quiet hum of the station, the artifact stirred. Ilara had been staring at the glowing etchings, her thoughts drifting to the sorrow she'd buried years ago, the ache of her sister's death, the unresolved guilt she carried. A single tear slid down her cheek and hit the desk beneath her. As if responding to her vulnerability, the obelisk's hum deepened, shifting into an intricate rhythm. Symbols etched into its surface began to glow, rearranging themselves into spiraling formations that pulsed like a heartbeat. Startled, Ilara leaned closer. Her scanner beeped furiously, registering an uptick in the artifact's energy levels. "Why now?" she whispered. Suddenly, a beam of golden light erupted from the obelisk, coalescing into a shimmering projection. A figure emerged within the light, a tall, elegant being with elongated limbs and a translucent, bioluminescent aura. Its skin shimmered with shifting hues, and its eyes were twin orbs of soft, golden light. Ilara froze, her breath caught in her throat. The being's gaze, or what she assumed was its gaze, met hers. It raised a hand, and symbols appeared in the air between them, glowing softly. Then, to Ilara's astonishment, the symbols rearranged themselves into a pattern she could recognize. Poetry. From the fire of stars, we are shaped. In the silence of space, we search. To find a voice is to find hope. Her heart pounded. "You understand me?" she asked, her voice trembling. The being tilted its head, as though considering her words. Slowly, it raised a hand to its chest and spoke in a voice that resonated like a symphony. "Arelin," it said, placing a hand over its heart. Ilara swallowed hard, her instincts as a scientist warring with the awe coursing through her. "Arelin," she repeated, pointing to it. Then, placing a hand on her chest, she said, "Ilara." The being, Arlin, mimicked her motion, the corners of its glowing eyes crinkling in what might have been amusement or recognition. "What are you?" Ilara asked softly. Arelin didn't respond in words. Instead, it extended its hand toward her, and in the air between them, an image appeared, a sprawling nebula, stars scattered like grains of sand. At its center was a pulsating anomaly, a black maw devouring light. The image shifted again, showing Arelin's people, the Quarren. Countless beings like Arelin, their forms ethereal and harmonious, stood on a crumbling world beneath a darkening sky. Ilara felt a pang in her chest. "Your world, it's dying." Arelin nodded slowly, then reached toward her again. The image shifted to Earth, its blue surface gleaming against the black of space. Overlapping images of Earth's history appeared: cathedrals, great libraries, rockets soaring into the heavens. "You sent this message hoping we would find it," Ilara murmured, piecing the narrative together. "You were asking for help." Arelin's symphony-like voice resonated again, and though the words were incomprehensible, the meaning was clear. They were desperate. Ilara took a deep breath. The weight of the moment settled heavily on her shoulders. Humanity had sought alien life for centuries, hoping for answers to their greatest questions. Now, it wasn't answers that awaited. It was a plea for survival. Chapter 3. Fragile Connections. The research station buzzed with activity the next morning. Word of Ilara's encounter with Arelin had spread like wildfire, drawing the attention of every scientist, linguist, and political envoy on Proxima b. The artifacts lab was now a hive of specialists, their voices overlapping as they speculated about the implications of alien contact. Ilara, however, stood apart from the chaos. She leaned against the edge of the observation deck, staring out at the crimson horizon. Arelin's plea replayed in her mind, the memory of their interaction both haunting and exhilarating. "Dr. Voss," said a voice behind her. She turned to find Commander Ainsley approaching, his expression tight. "The Council wants a report. Everything you've got on this Arlen. And I mean everything." Ilara sighed. "It's not that simple, Commander. Arlen's communication isn't just words. It's layered, emotional. The Quarren don't think like us. Their language is experiential." Ainsley raised an eyebrow. "Experiential. They don't just speak, they feel. Their language is like music, built on emotion as much as structure. I don't even think Arlen was speaking directly to me. It was more like they were inviting me into their thoughts." Ainsley crossed his arms. "And what did you learn from this invitation?" "That their civilization is on the brink of collapse," Ilara said, her voice lowering. "They need our help, but bridging the gap between us won't be easy. They see emotion as the foundation of intelligence, not logic. And right now, they probably think we're the primitive ones." Ainsley's lips tightened. "We've got enough problems of our own without babysitting an alien species. Earth's resources are stretched thin as it is. The Council's going to need a hell of a reason to commit to this." Ilara's eyes flashed. "If Arlen's people are advanced enough to send interstellar messages, imagine what they could teach us. Their survival could be the key to ours." Later that evening, Ilara returned to the artifact lab. The others had been dismissed for the night, leaving her alone with the towering obelisk and its faint golden glow. She placed her hand on its surface, and the hum returned, soft and familiar. "Arlen," she said quietly, "can you hear me?" The light shifted, and the shimmering figure appeared once more. Arlen's form was translucent yet vividly alive, their bioluminescent aura pulsing in sync with the artifact's rhythm. Ilara took a step closer. "We're trying to understand you," she said. "But we're so different. How do we bridge the gap?" Arlen tilted their head, their golden eyes flickering with what seemed like understanding. They extended a hand, and Ilara hesitated before mirroring the gesture. Their hands didn't touch, but the golden light swirled around them, connecting them in a web of intricate patterns. Suddenly, Ilara's mind was flooded with sensations, fragments of Arlen's world. She felt the warmth of their sun, the cool rhythm of rain on alien leaves, the deep, resonant sorrow of a collapsing star. Her own emotions surged in response, wonder, fear, and an ache she hadn't felt in years. When the connection faded, Arlen spoke. Their voice was soft, melodic, and tinged with hope. Though the words weren't clear, the meaning came through. "Together, we can learn." Ilara wiped a tear from her cheek, unaware it had fallen. "Yes," she whispered. "We'll try." The next morning, Ilara gathered the linguists and scientists. She explained the connection she'd experienced with Arlen, emphasizing the need for a different approach. "We've been treating this like a puzzle to solve," she said, her voice steady but impassioned. "But it's more than that. Arlen isn't just talking to us. They're sharing themselves with us. We have to do the same." One of the linguists frowned. "You're suggesting we—" "What? Start crying in front of them?" Ilara fixed the man with a sharp look. "I'm suggesting we show them who we are. Our history, our culture, our emotions. Everything that makes us human." The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling over them. Finally Ainsley spoke, his tone grudging but thoughtful. "All right, Dr. Voss. Let's see if we can teach an alien what it means to be human." Chapter 4. When Stars Align. In the weeks that followed, humanity's interaction with Arlen and the Quarren became a delicate dance of cultural exchange. The artifact served as the bridge between species, its golden light flickering to life whenever Ilara or her team initiated contact. Each session revealed more about the Quarren, and in turn, the humans shared their own stories, through art, music, and moments of unguarded emotion. Arelin was an attentive learner. They absorbed Earth's history like a sponge, their golden eyes flickering with curiosity as they watched video recordings of humanity's triumphs and tragedies. Ilara often found herself narrating these stories, her initial professionalism giving way to raw, heartfelt reflections. On one such evening, she showed Arelin a recording of the Apollo 11 moon landing. The Quarren's symphonic voice hummed in awe as they watched humanity's first steps on another celestial body. "This was one of our first great leaps," Ilara explained, her tone soft. "We looked up at the stars and thought, we can reach them." Arelin tilted their head, their voice resonating with a melody that translated roughly to, "Stars call to those who dare." Ilara smiled. "Exactly." The breakthrough came when Arelin revealed the true nature of the Quarren's crisis. Using the artifact as a conduit, they shared a vivid simulation of their home star system. At its center was a massive, unstable star teetering on the brink of collapse. The Quarren's world, nestled within the habitable zone, was already suffering the effects: rising radiation levels, catastrophic weather, and an imminent supernova. The room was silent as the simulation ended. Ilara, Ainsley, and the gathered scientists stared at the glowing obelisk, their expressions grim. "They have months, maybe a year at most," Ilara said finally. "If that star goes supernova, it'll annihilate their planet." Ainsley's jaw tightened. "We don't have the resources to evacuate an entire species, let alone relocate them." Ilara shook her head. "It's not just about evacuation. The Quarren's physiology is tied to their star's unique radiation spectrum. If they leave their system, they won't survive long without that energy." "Then what's the plan, Dr. Voss?" Ainsley asked, his voice sharp. Ilara hesitated. Arelin suggested something unconventional. "They believe that by pooling our knowledge and resources, we might stabilize their star long enough to buy them time." A murmur rippled through the room. One of the astrophysicists scoffed. "Stabilize a star? That's impossible. Even for us." "Maybe for us alone," Ilara countered. "But the Quarren understand energy manipulation on a level we can't even fathom. Combined with our technology, it might not be impossible." Ainsley's gaze hardened. "And if we fail?" Ilara met his eyes, her voice steady. "If we fail, we'll have tried. Isn't that what humanity does? We dare to dream, even when the odds are against us." The next phase of the collaboration began. Humanity's brightest minds worked alongside Arelin and the Quarren to develop a plan. Using Quarren bioenergetics and human engineering, they theorized a method to channel emotional energy into a stabilizing field around the star. The key to the project was the artifact itself, which acted as a converter between human and Quarren energy. But the process required a massive emotional output, an intensity of feeling that would push the limits of both species. Ilara became the linchpin of the effort. Her connection with Arelin allowed her to mediate between the teams, but it also made her the emotional anchor for the artifact. As the tests progressed, she found herself drawing deeper on her own emotions, her mind often raw from the intensity. One night, as she sat alone in the lab, Arelin's projection appeared. "You are weary," they said, their voice a gentle hum. Ilara looked up, her expression tired but resolute. "This is bigger than me. I'll manage." Arelin stepped closer, their golden light casting a soft glow over her face. "Your strength is not infinite, Ilara. To give too much is to lose yourself." She met their gaze, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "We're human. Sacrifice is kind of our thing." Arelin tilted their head, the melody of their voice shifting. A light that burns too brightly extinguishes too soon. We do not wish for your light to fade. For a moment, Ilara was struck by the depth of their concern. She realized that Arelin wasn't just a representative of their people. They were a friend, perhaps even something more. "I'll be fine," she said softly. "We'll save your people, Arelin. I promise." Chapter 5. The Cost of Love. The test run for Project Stellar Bridge began under the watchful eyes of both humanity and the Quarren. On the surface of Proxima b, the artifact had been integrated into a massive energy relay system built by humans and augmented with Quarren bioenergetic technology. The relay, a lattice of shimmering crystal and steel, pulsed with golden light as the artifact hummed in anticipation. Ilara stood at the central console, her heart racing. Across the lab, Arelin's projections shimmered with their usual calm, their golden eyes fixed on her. Around them, teams of human scientists and Quarren emissaries worked in unison, their actions precise but tense. "All systems are green," came a voice over the intercom. It was Commander Ainsley, observing from a nearby monitoring station. "Whenever you're ready, Dr. Voss." Ilara took a deep breath and looked to Arelin. "Are you sure this will work?" Arelin inclined their head. "There is no certainty, only trust. We are with you." Their words settled something within her. "Let's do this," she said. She placed her hands on the console, initiating the process. The room vibrated with the low hum of the artifact's activation. Golden light coursed through the relay system, weaving its way toward the test generator. Simultaneously, both human and Quarren participants closed their eyes, focusing on projecting their emotions into the field. The artifact began to glow brighter, its hum deepening into a symphony. Ilara felt it resonate within her, pulling at the deepest parts of her psyche. Memories surfaced, her first steps as a child, her sister's laughter, the emptiness that followed her loss. Arelin's voice cut through her thoughts, a melodic thread that grounded her. "Share with us, Ilara. Together, we will create the bridge." The test succeeded, partially. The energy field stabilized for a brief moment before collapsing under the strain, sending a ripple of feedback that left Ilara and several participants gasping for breath. "It wasn't enough," one of the engineers said, his voice tight. The emotional input fell short. Ilara steadied herself, her hands trembling. "We need more power." Arelin stepped forward, their projection flickering slightly. "The bond we share grows stronger with each attempt. But the deeper the connection, the greater the risk." Ilara frowned. "What risk?" Arelin hesitated, their golden light dimming. Finally they spoke, their voice tinged with sorrow. "The artifact is a vessel of unity. To sustain the bridge, it must anchor itself to the strongest connection. If we succeed, it may take that bond from us." The room fell silent. "You're saying it'll sever the connection between us?" Ilara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Arelin nodded slowly. "It is the cost of survival." The revelation weighed heavily on Ilara as the team prepared for the final attempt. She sat alone in the observation deck that night, staring out at the alien sky. Her mind churned with doubts and fears, but one thought rose above them all. Could she bear losing Arelin? The sound of footsteps pulled her from her thoughts. She turned to see Arelin's projection, their form faint but steady. "You should rest," they said gently. Ilara shook her head. "I can't. This bond between us, it's more than just a tool. It's real. Isn't it?" Arelin stepped closer, their golden eyes meeting hers. "It is as real as the stars above us. And as fragile." "I don't want to lose it," she admitted, her voice breaking. Aurelian's voice softened into a melody. "We may lose the bond, but not what it has given us. You have shown us the courage and beauty of your people, Ilara. That will remain, always." Tears welled in her eyes. "But I don't want to forget you." Aurelian reached out, their hand hovering just above hers. Though they couldn't touch, Ilara felt the warmth of their presence. "We will not forget. Not while there are stars to remind us." The day of the final attempt arrived. The relay system was at full capacity, the artifact glowing like a miniature sun. Across Proxima B, human and Quarren alike joined their efforts, projecting their emotions into the growing energy field. Ilara stood at the console, Aurelian at her side. She could feel the artifact pulling at their connection, the bond between them straining as the energy field grew. "Focus, Ilara," Aurelian said, their voice steady. "You are the anchor." With a deep breath, Ilara poured everything she had into the artifact. She relived every moment of her life, her joys, her grief, her love for her sister, and the connection she now shared with Aurelian. The artifact shone brilliantly, its symphony reaching a crescendo. The energy field stabilized, wrapping around the simulated star in the test chamber. Data monitors lit up with success signals, cheers erupting from the observers. But Ilara barely noticed. She felt the bond with Aurelian fray, the connection dissolving like sand slipping through her fingers. "No," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "No, please." Aurelian's golden light dimmed, their voice a faint echo. "You have given us life, Ilara, and for that, we will always be grateful." Their form faded, leaving only the glow of the artifact behind. Chapter 6. The Bridge of Light. The artifact now stood as a silent monument to the sacrifice that had been made. In the days following the final test, Ilara found herself drawn to it, lingering in the lab even as the rest of the team celebrated their success. The bond with Aurelian was gone, leaving an aching void she couldn't ignore. The news from the Quarren system was promising. The test run had proven viable, and work began immediately to deploy the relay technology on a massive scale. Human and Quarren vessels, once strangers to one another, now orbited Proxima B in synchronized effort, transporting materials and specialists to prepare for the operation. Despite the progress, Ilara felt adrift. She kept her feelings hidden as she coordinated the project, but her mind often wandered to Aurelian. Were they still out there, remembering her as she remembered them? Or had the bond's severance wiped the slate clean? The deployment of Project Stellar Bridge was an event unlike anything humanity had ever attempted. A fleet of human ships, alongside Quarren vessels that shimmered like living organisms, converged in the Quarren home system. The unstable star loomed in the distance, its fiery corona writhing with unpredictable flares. Ilara stood on the bridge of the human flagship Aegis, her gaze fixed on the star. She felt the weight of every decision that had led to this moment. Around her, the crew worked in focused silence, their faces a mix of determination and awe. "Final alignments are complete," Commander Ainsley reported. "We're ready to activate the bridge." Ilara nodded. "Begin the sequence." The relay system powered up, a dazzling lattice of golden light spanning the void between the ships. At its heart was the artifact, mounted on a Quarren vessel and glowing brighter than ever. The symphony of its hum resonated across the fleet, carried by the comm systems like a haunting melody. As the energy field expanded, Ilara felt it again, the faint echo of the connection she had shared with Aurelian. It was weaker now, like a distant whisper, but it was there. "Stabilization field at 60%, came a voice over the intercom. Ilara focused on the readouts, her heart pounding. The energy from the artifact was weaving itself into the fabric of the star, damping its unstable reactions and creating a protective shell. 75%, the voice continued. Suddenly, an alert blared. One of the Quarren vessels reported a critical overload in their systems. Without them, the lattice would collapse. Diverting power from the secondary grid, Ainsley said. But it's not enough. We're going to lose containment. Ilara's mind raced. The only way to stabilize the field was to increase the emotional resonance flowing through the artifact. But she knew the cost of that connection, what it had taken from her once before. "I'll do it," she said, her voice firm. Ainsley turned sharply. "Ilara, no. You've already—" "It has to be me," she interrupted. "Arelin and I were the anchors. If I don't try, everything we've worked for will fail." Before anyone could stop her, Ilara left the bridge, running to the chamber where the ship's relay node was housed. The artifact's glow filled the room, its hum resonating through her chest. She placed her hands on the console, closing her eyes. The connection surged to life, stronger than before. Ilara was flooded with memories, both hers and the Quarren's. She saw their history, their triumphs and losses, their yearning to survive. And amidst it all, she felt Arelin, faint but unmistakable. "I'm here," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I won't let you go again." The artifact responded, its light intensifying as the energy field stabilized. Across the fleet, the systems synchronized, their output aligning perfectly with the Quarren star. The unstable flares subsided, and the star's surface shimmered with a golden sheen as the field enveloped it. Cheers erupted across the comms, but Ilara barely heard them. She was consumed by the connection, every fiber of her being intertwined with the artifact and the Quarren. And then, as suddenly as it had come, the connection faded. Ilara collapsed to the floor, her breath ragged. The room was silent, save for the steady hum of the artifact. Hours later, Ilara stood on the observation deck of the Aegis, staring at the Quarren star. Its golden hue now shone softly, a beacon of hope in the darkness of space. The Quarren's world had been saved, their future secured. But for Ilara, the cost was deeply personal. She touched the small pendant around her neck, a gift Arelin had fashioned during one of their early exchanges. Though the bond was gone, she could still feel the faintest echo of what they had shared, a reminder of the love that had transcended the limits of their worlds. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. Commander Ainsley's voice came over the intercom. "Dr. Voss, you're needed in the conference room. The Quarren emissaries want to speak with you." Ilara smiled faintly, wiping a tear from her cheek. "On my way." As she turned to leave, she glanced at the star one last time, its golden light reflected in her eyes. Chapter 7. A Love Beyond Limits. The conference room aboard the Aegis was alive with anticipation. The Quarren emissaries stood on one side, their luminous forms shimmering like waves of light, while the human representatives, dressed in formal uniforms, occupied the other. In the center of the room was Ilara, a figure straddling the worlds of the two species, her presence commanding silent respect. The Quarren emissary, a being named Toel, stepped forward. Their voice resonated through the room, a layered harmony that filled the air with unspoken meaning. "We are here because of you, Ilara Voss. The bridge you helped create has saved our star, and our people." Ilara bowed her head slightly. "It wasn't just me. It was all of us, human and Quarren. Together." The glow deepened, a sign of gratitude. "Even so, your sacrifice is beyond measure." Arelin spoke of your connection often, of your courage and the bond you shared. Though the artifact has severed it, their essence lingers within our collective memory. They are with us, always. At the mention of Arelin, Ilara felt a pang in her chest. The bond was gone, but the memory of their connection remained vivid, a constant ache and comfort. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice steady despite the emotion behind it. Dor raised a hand, and an image appeared in the air, a glowing nebula, its vibrant hues shifting and alive. "The bridge is more than a lifeline for our star. It is a symbol of what we can achieve together. The Quarren wish to continue this partnership, to explore the cosmos alongside you. Perhaps, together, we will find new stars to call home." The human representatives exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of relief and pride. Commander Ainsley was the first to speak. "On behalf of humanity, we welcome the Quarren as partners and allies. This is the beginning of something extraordinary." The months that followed were a whirlwind of progress. Joint efforts between the Quarren and humanity flourished, leading to unprecedented advancements in energy, medicine, and exploration. Proxima b became a hub of interspecies collaboration, its once isolated colony transformed into a thriving center of hope. For Ilara, life moved forward, though it was forever changed. Her role as a mediator between the species made her a symbol of the bond they had forged, but it also meant bearing the weight of what she had lost. Late one evening, as she worked alone in her quarters, a familiar hum filled the air. She turned sharply, her heart leaping. The artifact, now stored in a special chamber on the station, had activated. Hurrying to the chamber, Ilara found the artifact glowing faintly, its surface etched with new patterns. As she approached, a golden thread of light extended toward her, wrapping around her hand. Her breath caught as a voice filled the room, a symphony of sound that was unmistakably R.A. Lynn's. "Ilara!" Tears filled her eyes. "R.A. Lynn? How?" The light pulsed, the symphony softening. Though the bond was severed, it is not lost. A fragment remains, carried within the artifact. "I am here, in this way, because of you." Ilara's heart swelled with both joy and sorrow. "I thought I'd never hear you again." Arelin's voice became a soft melody. "Our connection may never be as it was, but it endures in a different form. Across the stars, you will always have a part of me." For a moment, Ilara simply stood there, letting the warmth of the connection wash over her. She knew it wasn't the same. It couldn't be. But it was enough. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. The final scene shifts to years later. Ilara stands on the observation deck of a Quarren vessel, gazing out at a new star system they've discovered together. Behind her, humans and Quarren work side by side, their partnership stronger than ever. As she looks at the stars, she touches the pendant around her neck and smiles faintly. She knows that somewhere, in some form, R.A. Lynn is with her. The cosmos stretch endlessly before them, filled with possibility, and in the quiet of the starlit void, Ilara feels a sense of peace.